Strong takes? He's got them.
He's on pace for 50 turnovers in 2 years. I'm not saying Baker's going to be bad. Baker is bad.
He's got questions that really make you think.
How is Jason Garrett still employed at 10:30 a.m. Central Time on 12/24 Christmas Eve?
He doesn't shy away from being bold.
Jameis Winston is everything the NFL Sunday Ticket was credited for.
He's not afraid to speak the truth.
Aaron Rodgers is an MVP. What the hell, is the national media losing their mind?
Now over to Seamun's 11.
Let's get it started here. I hope our boy Legs comes in. Legs said he's not coming in tonight because we're talking AFC South. Everybody knows, I shouldn't say everybody knows, but everybody that's been here for a while understands. A friend of mine, Legs, is a Houston Texans fan. It has not been the best offseason for the Houston Texans, I guess is the best way to put that. Taking a look back at 2000, and Slinks, I actually did notice you answered the question. You think Tennessee is going to have the best record in 2020? I actually tend to semi-agree with that, kind of, as you'll find out in a little bit later. But taking a look back at last year, focusing on the AFC South here, you had a pretty tight division, actually. For as bad as Jacksonville was throughout the year, they still managed to sneak in 6 wins at some point. Houston finished at 10-6, ended up winning the division, ended up with the 4 seed in the AFC playoffs. Tennessee went 9-7, did sneak in with that wild card. Again, two playoff teams from this division. Indy went 7-9 after a absolute rash of injuries. Our man Slickness here, I'm pretty sure projected Indy to win like 14 games or something crazy like that. I don't know what the hell he projected the Colts to be at. It was something like 14 wins. It was 10. Okay, Slick projected 10. Boner. I said I have a semi. I said semi as in like, how do you know it's not semi like a truck? But Slick projected him to win 10 games. Sorry. I knew it was 10 games is as ridiculous as 14. I digress. But it was a pretty competitive division. I mean, when you got a 4-game difference between the last and first place teams, you're not really going to see too much complaints from true NFL fans that just enjoy the game of football, as that division's pretty tight with a 4-game difference there. We all know how both Houston and Tennessee's seasons ended. Unfortunately for Houston and Tennessee fans, both of them had 20-plus point leads against the eventual Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, and neither one of them could hold on to said lead. Taking a look back, we'll start with Houston. Taking a look back at Houston, Houston had 6 wins by 3 points or less. A team that went 10-6 had 6 wins by 3 points or less. So what that basically tells me as a general fan of the NFL is they got really, really lucky. They only had 1 loss by 3 points or less. So basically what that's telling me is how lucky they got with 7 games decided by 3 points or less and having 6 of those be wins. They only played 5. They only had 5 games, including the playoffs, against teams in the playoffs. They had a pretty easy schedule. Easy schedule. Yo, Sky, welcome on in. Colts with 11, in your opinion, this year? Okay. I'm saying 12 or 13 for the Colts. Hey, anyone but Jacksonville can win it. Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you, Sky. Bob is a joke. I didn't see. Is Vinatieri going to use his walk? Vinatieri. So, so the Colts actually signed. So last year when I said a lot right there, chat, that was rather embarrassing. Sky, hopefully you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. QB as good as his non-assistant receivers? Yeah, I can see that. Somewhat, Slinks. I can see that somewhat. Okay, cool. Just says boner boy. Interesting. But I'm assuming that's from the semi. Yeah, I mean, I do think any team can win this division. I do think Deshaun Watson is as good as his receivers, but if Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks can stay healthy, he still has two very, very good wide receivers. Is it DeAndre Hopkins? Absolutely not. But if Will Fuller is healthy, he is an amazing wide receiver. Maybe it's because he had DeAndre Hopkins on the other side. But if you could put Cooks and Fuller together, I think they're all right. Especially if you've got Duke Johnson coming out of the backfield. So see how they use Duke. If anything, maybe they could convert Duke to play some slot receiver or something. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do that. But anyway, Slick, to get back to the Vinatieri point, and we will discuss this in a little bit when we cover Indy as well. Adam Vinatieri is gone. Adam Vinatieri was put on an injured reserve. I can't imagine he's going to be back I can't imagine he's going to play with them. They signed the rookie kicker that kicked for the 49ers for a couple games. It actually was really, really good for the Niners before they got Robbie Gould back. So I can't imagine. I personally think we've seen the last of Vinatieri kicking for the Colts. And I'm with you, Slinks, right? I'm with you. I think Duke would be I thought it was the absolute perfect fit for Duke Johnson to go to Houston. He had only Carlos Hyde, right? And Carlos Hyde, 49er legend. I absolutely love the guy. Carlos Hyde has had a lot of carries. Carlos Hyde is not on the younger side of NFL running backs. I thought Duke Johnson was going to get about 8 carries a game, and I thought he was going to get about 8 to 9 targets a game. I thought you could very well see about 16 quote-unquote target touches for Duke Johnson per game last year, and it just didn't happen. They didn't use Duke Johnson. He never saw the field. For whatever reason, Carlos Hyde was their man. Duke Johnson, I don't get it. I don't understand why they didn't use him out of the backfield. I think he would be perfect coming out of the backfield. I think he'd be perfect coming out of the slot. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens and how they utilize him this year without Hopkins. But yeah, I mean, and then of course when you look at Houston's offseason, right? When you think of Duke Johnson, and to kind of go on that Duke Johnson tirade there for a second, you trade DeAndre Hopkins. I almost combined their two names. And you get back David Johnson. Now, David Johnson did have a good year and a half before he got hurt. He kind of came out of nowhere and was all of a sudden, boom, amazing, right? In Arizona. I don't think Duke Johnson's that much worse than David Johnson. I've caught backlash on it before. I believe they're similar players. Do we know Duke Johnson can run like David Johnson? We have no idea because no team's willing to give him the chance. For whatever reason, the Browns the Browns shut him behind Chubb because they shut him behind Chubb. As we know, Chubb is actually a very, very good running back, right? So I get that. But why he was stuck behind Carlos Hyde, I have no idea. The only thing I can attest Duke Johnson being behind Carlos Hyde and not getting 15 touches a game is because O'Brien's just a moron. That's the only thing I can attest it to. We have no idea how good Duke Johnson could be because he's never got a shot. He got drafted by a team that was never going to give him a shot realistically. Yes, they gave him a quote-unquote shot, right? But when you got Chubb, you're not going to give him a shot, and it's understandable. It really is understandable, but why Billy O.B. does not want to give him a shot, absolutely beyond me. David Johnson is a negative value at his contract, 1,000%. 1,000%. The trade for DeAndre Hopkins was one of the most puzzling things I've seen. I've been a diehard NFL fan for going on diehard, don't want to miss a game, watch 9 hours a day every single Sunday, watch the Monday night game, like live and breathe football when it is on, God bless my wife for allowing this to happen. Probably about 18 years now, probably since I was about 14. I used to make sure I didn't work Sundays when I had part-time jobs. I didn't want to work Sundays. I would work all day Saturday. And I love college football, but not as much as I love the NFL. And I have never seen anything like this Houston offseason. I have never seen, not only do you trade arguably the best wide receiver in football. I mean, if you want to argue Michael Thomas, I'll give you Michael Thomas. If you want to argue Julio Jones, I'm not going to listen to it. If you want to argue Mike Evans, not going to listen to it. If you want to argue Devontae Adams, you could probably just get the hell out of here. I'm not even going to bother listening to that. I like all those guys, but Mike Evans and Devontae Adams aren't even close to Hopkins level. Julio, I'm not going to listen to it, but I'll let you argue it. How about that? But if you want to say Michael Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins is the best wide receiver in football, absolutely no problem with either of those, in my opinion. So not only are you going to trade, but you're going to take on, as Sky mentioned right there, a negative value contract for an injured running back, making an insane amount of money when you already have a running back that does so much similar to what David Johnson does in Duke Johnson, just waiting there for his chance. And a second round pick. You're telling me DeAndre Hopkins is worth an old injured running back on a terrible contract and a second round pick? My mind is officially blown. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, as a San Francisco 49ers fan, who we did need a wide receiver, and I mean, we'll get to the NFC West and draft and all that stuff, who I'm more than happy with the draft and what they got at wide receiver. If we could have traded a second round pick and Breda, who's a young running back and actually the fastest running back in the NFL the last 2 years, I believe it's 2 years in a row now, he's had the fastest clock speed while running the ball or something like that of almost 24 miles per hour. And he's only, and he's young and inexpensive. If we could have traded Breda and a second round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know what I would have done. I would have pranced around my apartment complex naked, probably. I have no idea. But then they turn around and they use that second pick on Cooks. On Brandon Cooks. Who I like Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is worth a fifth round pick at best. He can't stay on the field. He's older. And you just gave up a second round. Basically, you just traded DeAndre Hopkins for a wide receiver who's going to give you 6 to 7 games a year, and a running back who's old and injury prone. You got an old injury prone wide receiver and an old injury prone running back for arguably the best wide receiver. If you don't call him the best, you're probably calling him the second best wide receiver in the NFL. I don't get it. And DeAndre Hopkins, one of the most telling things also, right? Let me see if I can, I should have been prepared with this. So my apologies. I sent this to my boy Legs, unfortunately. I shouldn't have sent it to him. I felt a little bit bad. Where is it here? Here we go. DeAndre Hopkins told Sports Illustrated that he had, quote, no relationship, end quote, with Coach Bill O'Brien during their 6 years together with the Houston Texans, and defended himself against anonymous criticisms that surfaced after he was traded to the Arizona Cardinals. Quote, there was no relationship, end quote, Hopkins told Sports Illustrated of O'Brien. Quote, make sure you put that in there. There's not a lot to speak about, end quote. Hopkins said that by asking for a little raise, he knew the team would likely instead shop him instead of pay him, which, quote, is the outcome I wanted, end quote, Hopkins told Sports Illustrated. Think about that. Just think about that for a second, right? Hopkins said that by asking for a little raise as the first or second best wide receiver in football, he knew the team would not pay him and likely would instead shop him, and, quote, that's the outcome I wanted, end quote. How do you have a head coach that's coached you for 6 years and you have no relationship with your star player? There are 3 stars. There are legitimately 3 stars on the Houston Texans. You've got J.J. Watt. You've got Deshaun Watson, who I believe is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He is brilliant. And you've got DeAndre Hopkins. You have 3 stars, bona fide stars on Houston. And Billy old boy couldn't even have a relationship with one of the 3. It has not been a good offseason for Houston. The one thing that just baffles me as well, right, is Hopkins wanted a little raise. Again, it's not a little in most of our eyes, right? It was a large raise. But then they go out and make Tunsil the highest paid offensive lineman ever at $22 million a year. Now, I'm all for protecting Deshaun Watson, right? I am all for getting a left tackle that could protect Deshaun Watson because he is your franchise. That we know for now. Billy O'Boy may trade him in the next couple of weeks. We have absolutely no idea. The guy's a loose cannon. But you're going to take that money and you're going to use it on an old, decrepit wide receiver, an old, decrepit running back, and make Larry Tunsil, who might be the 6th or 7th best left tackle in football, the highest paid offensive lineman in football. However, I did like Houston's draft. Russ Blacklock is a solid D tackle out of TCU. I actually thought the 49ers, like going into it, when I did my quote-unquote mock draft, there's a lot of quote-unquotes in here, chat. When I did my mock draft, I actually thought that the Niners were going to get, him with 31 and get Judy or Lamb at 13. It turns out they got a better D tackle, and I like the wide receiver fit for him just as much. Taking a look at next year, you have the Houston Texans schedule, right? So we don't know when everybody's going to play, which does matter, right? When you play teams, when you come off a bye, everything like that, it does matter. But just taking a look at the knowledge and what we know right now, you've got Houston's home schedule of New England, Minnesota, Green Bay, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Tennessee, Jacksonville, or Indy. I see possibly 4, possibly 5 wins there. We don't know what New England's going to be like. We don't know. Are they going to go after and get Cam? Are they going to go get Cam? We don't know. Are they going to let Statham be their quarterback? I don't know. But if you look at that, I mean, they probably could. They're going to beat Cincy at home. They're going to beat Jacksonville at home. They're probably going to beat Indy. They're probably going to split Indy, Tennessee, I would think. They're going to lose to Baltimore. They're going to lose to Minnesota. You got Green Bay, New England. They can go either way. I see 4 or 5 wins there. I see 2 for sure wins in Cincinnati and Jacksonville. And then with the other 6, I could see a 3-3 in there between Green Bay, Minnesota, New England, Baltimore, Tennessee, and Indy. And then I have and then the road schedule is at Chicago, at Cleveland, at Detroit, at Indy, Jacksonville, Tennessee, at Kansas City, at Pittsburgh. I see at best 4-4 there. I see at best 4-4. I don't see them going into Indy. I don't see them going into Tennessee. I don't see them going into Pitt. I don't see them going into Kansas City winning. That leaves Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Jacksonville. Did they get 3 wins? Did they lose one of those games and get 3 wins? I see Houston at either 8-8. I see Houston at 8-8. I do see Houston at 8-8. I think floor. I think their floor is at 7, and their ceiling's at 10, and I see them at 8-8. That's kind of where I go. Rotro, I have 10,000 points. What does that mean, TK? Not sure what that means. They had to use 2 first-round picks to trade for a player. Then they immediately gave a massive contract to. Where's the value? I mean, everybody knew that they were going to have to re-sign Tunsil, right, Sky? Everybody knew they were going to have to re-sign Tunsil. Because it's kind of like with the Rams. You don't give up 2 first-round draft picks and then not. Oh, that's what you mean, DK. Got you. Hey, man, we love singing here. You could save up for other songs. There's other songs in there, too. But yeah, Sky, it's one of those things where, we don't know what the negotiations are like. We don't even know what it's like negotiating with Billy O'Brien. We just assume it's easy, right? Because we just all assume after this offseason, we just assume he has no idea what he's doing, right? And with him having no idea what he's doing, Tunsil probably walked in and said, "This is what I want. You traded 2 first-round draft picks for me. You already look silly as shit. You know how silly you're going to look if you let me walk after giving 2 first-round draft picks for a rental? Like, we knew they're going to have to pay him, but $22 million a year for Tunsil? For Tunsil? What do you mean you have little faith in Nick Foles? Who said I had little faith in Nick Foles? Who said I had little faith in Nick Foles? I didn't say anything about that. Off topic. We haven't even started talking about the Bears yet. I never even said that they would beat the Bears or lose to the Bears. I just said that they have maybe their road schedule is like 3 to 4 wins and their home schedule is 4 to 5. I see them 8-8 or 9-7, but I wouldn't be shocked if they win 7 games. Houston beating Chicago. I never said they would. You've got Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Jacksonville. I said, can they win 3 or all 4 of those? We already covered the tech. Yes. Yo, Legs, what's up, my dude? We are officially moving on to the Tennessee Titans. Legs, it's good to see you in here. We are officially moving on to the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, everybody says, where did they come from? I'm gonna throw a little physax at you and let you know where the Tennessee Titans came from. The Tennessee Titans during the regular season went 9-7, and of those 9 wins, they had a whopping 2 wins against playoff teams. 2. They beat 2 playoff teams in the regular season. The Kansas City Chiefs, mind-boggling that they beat the Chiefs. Should have beat them twice, as we all know. And the Houston Texans. They split with the Texans. I believe they beat the Texans. They did beat the Texans. They beat the Texans at home, or I'm sorry, at Houston 35-14. I believe that was week 1 of the year too. I think that was week 1. I think that was still the Mariota show at that point. And then they lost to him again right away week 3. So not only did Tennessee only beat 2 playoff teams in the regular season, they went on to beat Baltimore and New England and held a 20-point lead against Kansas City, who they already beat in the season. So they had as many wins in the playoffs as they had against playoff teams in the regular season. We all know what happened in the AFC Championship game with an absolute collapse. They did have one of the easier schedules in the NFL. Tannehill somehow keep it, dude. Ryan Tannehill is absolutely perfect for that team. And I'm not saying Ryan Tannehill is a great quarterback. I'm not even saying Ryan Tannehill is a very good quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is a very good quarterback for that team, and exactly what Leg said. Trent Dilfer mode activated. That's what Tennessee needs. Tennessee doesn't need an Aaron Rodgers going out there and freaking chucking the ball 30 yards down the field, hoping that one of his receivers catches it. They don't need... Everybody needs Patrick Mahomes, let's be honest. Everybody wants Patrick Mahomes. Tennessee has one of the largest human beings I've ever seen in my life at running back. They have a very good offensive line. They have a very good defense. They have an outstanding secondary. They're going to run the ball. They're going to beat you on the offensive and defensive lines. They're going to beat you in the trenches. And all they need is a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, who is perfect for that team, to make a couple throws to a guy like A.J. Brown, Corey Davis. Does Delanie Walker, is he even ever on the field anymore? Delanie Walker, I guess. The 3 games you get of Delanie Walker. I'm that guy, chat, who drafts Delanie Walker every year in fantasy like, this is the year he stays healthy. Because when Delanie Walker is on the field, Delanie Walker is an amazing tight end. Problem is you get him for like 3 games a year, and for whatever reason, I draft him in fantasy every single year. Halfway through the season, I drop him into free agency, and I blaspheme his name. A.J. Brown looked like a man amongst boys at the end of the season. A.J. Brown started looking really good when Ryan Tannehill took over. And I don't think it's a coincidence, Sky. I don't think it's a coincidence. Marcus Mariota is Marcus Mariota. He's not going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. I guess he might get a shot if there's an injury, but he's not going to be a starter, like an every down starter. What Tennessee did add, and I absolutely love it, is he on the Raiders? Yeah, Mariota's on the Raiders. Yeah, he's backing up Carr on the Raiders. He's got about 37 more. He's got about 37 new wide receivers to throw the ball to, though, in case Carr ever gets hurt. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Raiders have about 42 wide receivers on the roster, and 35 of them came in the draft. So at least he's got new targets. What they did with an absolutely phenomenal secondary to begin with is somehow Fulton, the cornerback out of LSU, dropped all the way to the late second round. And he's a guy that they don't need to come in and play right away. So he's a guy that can sit back, play the dime for a year, play the nickel for a year, whatever it may be, and learn from very good cornerbacks. So I think that's a perfect fit for Fulton. I think that's a perfect fit for Tennessee. They also went out and grabbed Evans, the running back out of, I believe, Appalachian State. I believe it's Appalachian State, who I think will be a good fit. I think will be a very good fit to Derrick Henry there. He might even see some time on special teams. And then they also added Isaiah Wilson. I think they had a phenomenal draft class to go along with an AFC Championship roster. Do I think they get back to the AFC Championship? No. They tagged Derrick Henry. They paid Ryan Tannehill. And they brought in Vic Beasley to hopefully create some pressure. Now, Vic Beasley couldn't get it going in Atlanta. Vic Beasley struggled in Atlanta. He had some flashes. But overall, he struggled in Atlanta. There's a reason he's not on the Falcons anymore, as what was supposed to be a dominant pass rusher coming out of Clemson. I do like the add of Vic Beasley. It's low risk, low reward for a team that needed to get pressure. They had that lead. Kansas City got down to just passing the ball, and Patrick Mahomes did what Patrick Mahomes does. He had all day to throw for the most part, and he went out there and threw. Taking a look at Tennessee's schedule, their home schedule includes Houston, Indy, Jacksonville, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit, Buffalo. I don't see them winning less than 6 games at home. Between Houston, Indy, Jacksonville, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit, Buffalo. I don't see less than 6 wins there. I don't see them losing to Detroit at home. I don't see them losing to Chicago at home. Sorry, Slinks. It's not about Nick Foles. It's about having to play on the road against Tennessee. I don't see them losing to Cleveland at home, Jacksonville, Indy, or Houston at home. That leaves Pitt and Buffalo. I think that's very, very possible. They win 7 or 8 home games. I don't see them winning less than 6. Their road games include at Baltimore, probably going to be a loss. You got Cincinnati, Denver, Green Bay, Houston, Indy, Jacksonville, Minnesota. There I see 5 wins. I see 5 wins on the road. I mean, you got Cincinnati. I think they could beat Denver. I think they'll beat Jacksonville. I think they'll snag either one of Houston, Indy, or Denver. And then you're going to get to 5 wins. Couple that with at least 6. I see Tennessee with 11 or 12 wins this year. I think their floor is 9. I think their ceiling is 12. And I think they're going to win 11. I think they're going to win 11 with a floor of 9 and a ceiling of 12. I do think Tennessee's going to win 11 games this year, Legs. Again, like their home schedule, right? Tennessee lost Jack Conklin. I mean, Tennessee did lose some pieces, but Tennessee had one of the better off seasons, I think. Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, do they lose at home against Houston? Probably not. Do they lose at home against Indy? Probably not. Jacksonville? No. Cleveland? No. Chicago? No. Detroit? No. Boom. There's 6 home wins right there. And then my guess is they probably beat Pittsburgh or Buffalo. They have a pretty somehow they had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL, and then they come back and have a pretty easy schedule again this year too. Like, all they need to do, I think, is split Pittsburgh and Buffalo, and they're guaranteed 6 home wins, probably 7. It's not hard to win 11 games when you can win 7 at home. And then you still get to play teams like Cincinnati, Denver, Jacksonville on the road. Those 3 right there, boom. Coupled with that, you're looking at 10. With 7 home wins, you're guaranteed 10 there. They probably sneak one of Baltimore. Green Bay, Houston, Indy, Minnesota in there. I don't think it's hard to get to 11 wins for Tennessee. I think I'm picking them pretty close to their ceiling of 12. All right, we got 2 teams left. We have 2 teams left here. Let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Won't take too long to talk about Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I don't know what the hell is going on with Jacksonville. Fun fact about Jacksonville, guys. I don't know if you guys saw this, but about 12 hours ago, early this morning, the NFL basically told Jacksonville their second home of international games is not happening this year. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. Kind of big NFL news. They said with everything going on with the coronavirus that they're canceling all international games. So that means the one game that they always have in Mexico City that somehow always goes wrong because Mexico City can't get the dang field right? But other than that, I mean, it's tough for Jacksonville. But let's take a look at Jacksonville last year. 6-10. Somehow this team got to 6 wins. Don't ask me how the hell this team got to 6 wins. I mean, they didn't really beat anybody too great. They did have a couple puzzling wins. I mean, they beat the Colts by 18 in week 1. Very interesting. Other than that, their only other win that was probably like, wow, they actually won, that was the Titans towards the end of the year. Minshew magic. They got rid of Nick Foles. The Jacksonville Jaguars had... I'm sorry. I'm trying not to laugh while I get this off, chat. The Jacksonville Jaguars had 7 losses by double digits last year. They got absolutely... I don't know. Again, I don't know how this team got to 6 wins. They were outscored by 97 points last year. That is a lot of points to be outscored by when you're 6-10. They managed to score a whopping total of 300 points for the season. Now, I don't know about you. One thing I'm going to tell you, it ain't good. The New York Jets, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Denver Broncos, the Washington Redskins, and the Chicago Bears were the only teams to score less than Jacksonville. The Miami Dolphins, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Oakland Raiders, the Washington Redskins, the Carolina Panthers were the only teams to have worse point differential than they did. And somehow all of this led to 6 wins. Don't understand how. I think they actually had a pretty good draft. Jacksonville actively competed for Trevor Lawrence. 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. The Bears only have a defense. Yeah, their offense was pretty pitiful last year, Slinks. I did like the Jacksonville. I loved the Jacksonville offseason. Well, additions, let me say. I loved the Jacksonville additions. I thought they had a really, really good draft. Getting Henderson, absolutely amazing. Chasen, I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name. Absolutely amazing. Adding Shana Jr. at wide receiver, awesome. They added Schobert at linebacker. So now you've got Chasen and Schobert adding to the linebacker mix. Pretty good combo there. And you had Eifert as a weapon with Shonut Jr. as a weapon. Absolutely love it. Here's why I hate the Henderson pick, who I believe was the second best corner. I think he's an absolute can't miss corner. The only reason they had to draft Henderson is for whatever reason, 2 years ago, Jacksonville Jaguars had the best cornerback duo in football. 2 years ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars had 2 shut-down, lockdown corners. And then they decided to trade Jalen Ramsey, which they got a king's ransom for. Get it? They didn't want to pay him. And then they get rid of Bouye. So you have to bring in Henderson because you got rid of 2 studs. But replacing him with another stud, A+. You had a major hole, you filled it. You needed a pass rusher, you filled it. You needed a couple targets for Minshew, you filled them with Eifert, who may only give you 4 games. It is Eifert. And Shonut Jr. For the love of all things good, keep Trevor Lawrence out of my division. I'm sorry, Legs. He's going to be in your division. He's going to be in your division. Division already had to deal with luck. He's going to be in the division, my dude. I'll explain. Jacksonville, with all those additions I mentioned, pretty cool. Lost Calais Campbell, Bouye, Yannick, who those 3 are major pieces of their defense. Foles, Marquise Lee. They did a good job replacing Lee. They did a good job of replacing Campbell. They did a good job of replacing Bouye. They did a good job replacing them, but now you're replacing these guys with rookies. when these are veterans that showed up and showed out on a weekly basis. Now you have Leonard Fournette. Doesn't want to be there. Yannick didn't want to be there. Now you got people not even wanting to be there. I am in the mindset. Denver got an absolute steal there, Slinks, to replace Harris. Absolute steal replacing Harris there. But I am in the mindset of Jacksonville doesn't need to pay Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette has a lot of touches on him, a lot of carries, and a lot of hits on him in the NFL. Why pay an NFL running back $13 million that's already been in the league for 4 years with a ton of carries on him? Fournette has to be traded at some point this season. I agree, but they're not going to get anything for him, I don't think, Sky. That's the problem. Because teams understand why. I like Leonard Fournette. I think Leonard Fournette is an amazing running back. But why a team will have to trade for him and then be willing to pay him $12 million plus a year for a running back that's going to be in his 5th year with just an absurd amount of carries his first 4 years. Everybody freaks out about this not offering the 5th year option. What a lot of people don't understand about this 5th year option is it comes with monster price tags. Like, you could want a guy and be high on a guy and still not pick up his 5th year rookie option. It is possible. Because the price tag is absurd. And a running back is just not worth it. Like, running backs are the weirdest position in the NFL. I feel like as a rookie, if you're a first-round running back, you should get paid $12 million a year, and then that second contract should put you back down to, like, 8. Like, it should go almost the other way for running backs. Like, the only position it goes the other way, right? But I actually don't mind the Fournette thing. The Yannick thing is kind of weird because he blew up on Twitter, and I don't know what's going on with these NFL players on Twitter just yelling at their GMs and coaches to pay them and stuff like that. It's weird. Either way, that whole Yannick saga was crazy. But Jacksonville did a really good job replacing the holes. I thought they had a phenomenal draft. The problem is they lost everything in the offseason. I'm not sold on Minshew. I would have rather seen him stuck with Foles, but hey, they want Lawrence, right? They want Lawrence. Taking a look at their home schedule, you've got Houston, Indy, Tennessee, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit, Miami. I see 3 or 4 wins there. I could possibly see 4 wins there. I can see them beating Miami, possibly beating Detroit. I could see them taking one from Houston, Indy, or Tennessee just because it's a divisional game, right? So you got those 3. And then you could, Chicago, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, winning one more of those. We could see 3 or 4 wins there. I think that's realistic for Jacksonville to get 3 or 4 wins there. Again, they replaced their holes. We just don't know how they're going to. That sounds really weird. We just don't know how the rookies are going to go right off the bat. And is Minshew going to be as good in that sophomore season? Then you got at Baltimore, at Cincy, at Green Bay, at Houston, at Indy, at LA Chargers, at Minnesota, at Tennessee. What do they win there, chat? 1 game? Baltimore, Cincy, Green Bay, Houston, Indy, Chargers, Minnesota, Tennessee. All on the road. What do they win? 1 game? At the very, very most, they win 2 games. Very, very most, they win 2 games there. I don't even know if they'll beat Cincy on the road. They're not going to beat Green Bay on the road. They're not going to beat Baltimore. They're not going to beat Houston. They're not going to beat Indy. They're not going to beat Minnesota. They're not going to beat Tennessee. So I'm with you, Legs. I'm with you. Maybe they get a win against Cincy or LA. So if you factor it in with 3 or 4 home wins, possibly 1 or 2 road wins, I think you're looking at either 4-12 and 5-11. I feel they're going to be 4-12. I think Jacksonville is going to be 4-12. I think their floor is 2 wins, and I think their ceiling is once again 6. I think they have a wider gap because we don't know how the rookies are going to pan out yet, right? So I think there's a little bit wider gap between floor and ceiling there, but I think their floor is definitely 2 wins. I could see them losing every road game, and I could see them only beating a team like Miami and Detroit at home. Like, I think their floor is 2. Don't think they're going to get there. I'm going to go right in the middle there. I'm going to take them at 4 wins. However, when you look at the grand scheme of things, Cincinnati, right? The teams that could possibly, and this is what I said I'd get to in a second here, Legs, with them getting Trevor Lawrence, right? Cincinnati may have less wins than them. They ain't taking Trevor Lawrence. They just got their man in Joe Burrow. Nobody else in the AFC is going to have less wins than Jacksonville. Denver, I think, is right going to be right around 6 or 7. They're probably, I mean, the Jets right around there as well. The Bengals will probably be just as bad. That nobody in the NFC West and nobody in the NFC South are going to have 3 wins or less. The NFC North. Do you think Detroit wins 3 games again this year? If Stafford gets hurt, maybe. Are you banking on Stafford being hurt for more than half the season? Probably not. The only team I think that could contend with them for the worst record with Cincinnati and Jacksonville, I think that third team that's going to contend for that worst record is going to be the Washington Redskins. And the Washington Redskins are going to be tricky when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, right? If they're terrible again, if they're terrible this year, I don't think Haskins get another shot. So I think that might be your silver lining, Legs. If somehow Washington can finish with 3 or less wins and end up picking before Jacksonville, I think that's the only way. Because those are the 3 worst teams going into 2020, in my opinion. The Washington Redskins, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals could be decent. I mean, yeah, they got themselves a quarterback, but what are they going to do? Give up 485 points? 485 points per game. 485 points a game against defense. Can anybody name a Cincinnati Bengals defender? Is Geno Atkins still there? I honestly don't know. Is Geno Atkins still there? He might be the only defender if he's still there. He's the only one I can know. Name. Geno. Okay. So besides Geno Atkins, because I mean, he's one of the better defensive tackles. I forgot he was even there. Besides Geno Atkins, can anybody even name a Cincinnati Bengals defender? Their defense is... How many points did they give up last year? 420. The Dolphins gave up more. The Redskins, the Panthers, and the Cardinals. All right, so they weren't worst. But I mean, seriously, can you name a Bengals defender? I mean, do they still got that? Do they still got the cornerback that goes to jail all the time? I don't know. Jacksonville, I think, wins 4 games. I think they end up with either the worst or second worst record in football. And I think the only team that's going to be worse than them will be Cincinnati, which means I believe Jacksonville will get their pick of Trevor Lawrence in the draft. Unfortunately for our man Legs. So we are coming up on that hour here. Let's quickly run through Indianapolis here. Are you guys still thinking about names for Cincinnati? If you got one, throw one in. The rest of the time we're live. We're live here for football talk. I don't even give a shit once we switch over to DayZ. If you could name me a Cincinnati Bengals defender without Google searching it, that's not Geno Atkins. Wait, they seriously have Carlos Dunlap? They still have Carlos Dunlap? Oh, man. Oh, that Bengals defense is so bad. Remember when they used to be really good? Remember when the Bengals defense used to be really good when they were going to the playoffs and losing in the first round by 700 every year because A.J. Green was hurt and Red Rocket couldn't complete a pass to anybody that wasn't named A.J. Green? How about our boy Red Rocket ended in Dallas? Since he is south of me about 75 miles. Oh, really? So are you near Cleveland then? Is Cincinnati south of Cleveland? Yeah, when the whole defense was convicts. Exactly! Their whole defense could have been thrown in jail right before the playoffs. Nobody knew. But everybody knew they were amazing on the field. Vontae Burfict was out there murdering people on the field. Columbus? Oh, Dayton! Nice! Okay. Very nice. You guys from Dayton just had the college basketball player of the year, so that's pretty cool. So that's a little bit of a buzz around the city. Not too often. Yo, Sam, how you doing? We got one team left here, guys, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. Last year, Indy went 7-9. They did have a lot of close losses. They lost to the Steelers by 2. They lost to the Dolphins by 4. They lost to the Texans by 3. They did get pounded by the Jaguars, kind of head scratching. They lost to the Chargers by 6 to end the season. At that point, it wasn't. The Colts, the injuries were stockpiled last year. The injuries were absolutely stockpiled last year for Indianapolis. What Indianapolis did this offseason is, dare I say, they went for it, I guess is the best way to say it. They absolutely went for it. They added Nix, the Pro Bowl fullback from Pittsburgh. They added Phillip Rivers, who's got one more year and 17 more kids left in him. They then went on and traded their first-round pick to get who I believe to be the second best defensive tackle in football from the 49ers in DeForest Buckner. They also then went and signed DeForest Buckner's backup from San Francisco, Sheldon Day. They then go out and sign Xavier Rhodes. They then go out and sign Trey Burton. Those guys were, think about that, Pro Bowl Nix, Pro Bowl Buckner, Phillip Rivers, former Pro Bowler, Sheldon Day, Xavier Rhodes, All-Pro, Trey Burton, all via free agents and trade. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys when you only start 22 that they go out and trade. Yo, Sam, I'm doing well. You don't know anything about football? Yeah. All right, have a good one. You know why Cincy wears stripes? Why is that, TK? Yeah, a lot of Ohio in here. Tread lightly, Seamods. Hey, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Ohio. I literally just credited. I said Dayton. The Dayton Flyers. The Bengals and Raiders. Best helmets in football. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here with the Bengals is the best Raider. They always in jail. Hey, TK, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Oh, man. But not only did they add those monster pieces. Okay, Sheldon Day isn't a monster piece. But not only did they add those monster pieces in free agency, they also hit absolute home runs with Pittman Jr. and Jonathan Taylor in the draft. And they added, where's Bilderman? Is Bilderman in here? I wish Bilderman was in here. Then they added Eason. Then they added Eason as the QB of the future, maybe? Indy absolutely went for it. Who did they lose? They lost their starting center in Andrews. They lost Ebron, but then immediately replaced him with Burton. They lost Funches, who's absolutely atrocious, but then they immediately replaced him with Pittman Jr., who was my absolute steal of the draft. They're going to lose Vinatieri, as he's hurt, but they already replaced him with a different kicker. Kicker's a kicker. Vinatieri's kind of been bad for a couple years. And they lost Inman. So they lost a couple receivers, placed one with Pittman. They're adding who I believe to be the best running back in the draft, even though he was taken third, I believe, in the draft. They added a tight end to replace a tight end. They added 2 defensive tackles, a starting cornerback, a quarterback, a starting fullback to block for Jonathan Taylor. And they really didn't lose much, chat. They didn't need Funches or Ebron, especially not with Pittman and Burton. That's for sure. You're in Dayton as well, Sky? Hell yeah. Dude, look at it. Oh, I didn't realize there's this many Dayton people in here. All right, let's go. Nice. I knew you were, Sky, I knew you were there. I just didn't know like where in Ohio you were. Awesome. Taking a look at Indy, you've got Houston win, Jacksonville win, Tennessee probably win, Cincy win, Green Bay win, Jets win. So there's 6 home wins right there. Then they've got Baltimore and Minnesota. My guess is they probably win one of those 2, right? So what that's telling me is they're going to win 7 home games this year. 7 home games this year. They've got at Chicago, at Cleveland, at Detroit. They're probably going to win 2 of those 3. At Houston, at Jacksonville's a win. At Oakland, probably a win. At Tennessee, at Pittsburgh. I think that's 4 wins on the road. Coupled with 7 home wins, I think you got 11 wins out of Indy. I think Indy's floor is 9, and I think Indy's ceiling is 11. I'm picking them to go either 10-6 or 11. I think they're either going to win 10 or 11 games. I'm predicting them for the sake of this. I know I just said 11, but for the sake of this, I'm going to predict them to go 10. I'm going to have Tennessee at 10. I'm going to have Tennessee at 11, Indy at 10. We're going Houston at 8, and we're going Jacksonville at 4. And I'm going to leave you with this tad bit as we round this up before we switch on over and we play a little zombies. One of the most fun facts of the NFL season. You disagree 12-4 and win the South? Hey, there you go, Slick. I mean, it's possible. 12's their ceiling to me, Slick. 12's their ceiling to me. I honestly, I mean, they're gonna win 7 games at home. Can they get to 5 on the road? Yes, they could beat Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit on the road. Yes, they're going to beat Jacksonville on the road. If you think they're going to win that, that's 4. Then they just need to win one of Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Oakland, Houston on the road. So 12, I think, is their ceiling. 12 is possible. Wouldn't shock me at 12. You know, when I put this together, I had them at 11, and I had both them and Tennessee at 11. But we don't want to predict ties, chat. We don't want to predict ties. Give him Mr. Double Doink from Chicago as a kicker. I forgot. What is that, a bye or whatever? Houston and Tennessee. Okay. Houston and Tennessee. There you go. All right. So Slick thinks they're 12. If you give Indy 12, I'm probably giving Tennessee 10. Smitty! Indy wins the South. Hey, I'm right with you guys. Hey, when I wrote this, I had Indy at 11 and Tennessee at 11. I had both of them at 11. The only reason I changed my mind on Indy and went to 10 was because I don't want to have ties. But yeah, when I wrote this and went through the schedule, I have Tennessee at 11, Indy at 11, Jacksonville at 4, Houston at 8. That's how I had it breaking down. And then I just switched it so that we wouldn't have 2 people tied at 11. But one of the most fun facts of the NFL, last year the Houston Texans won the AFC South. Last year, the Houston Texans went 10-6. And I told you guys, I did tell you guys before, crazy fact, they played 7 games decided by 3 points or less, won 6 of them. The Houston Texans were actually, with a 10-6 record and a division leader, somehow they were outscored 385 to 378. I'm going to leave you guys from the C-Months 11 show on the tidbit of the Houston Texans in 2019 being 10-6 and actually outscored on the season. I want to appreciate you guys for being here, hanging out while we do our first C-Months 11 show of the off season. Today we discussed the AFC South. We broke down the drafts. We broke down what they added, lost in free agency. We broke down our 2019 season in review for the division, as well as our look ahead. It seems like most people are on Indy. I'm assuming Legs is probably the only one in chat on Houston, taking the AFC South. I believe most people are probably going to have them third. I think they're going to be competitive yet. I don't think they're going to get 3 teams in the playoffs. I think you're going to see Indy and Tennessee in the playoffs. Houston falls with the trade of Hopkins. 100% agree, Schmitty. Sky thinks Tennessee. Like I said, guys, I had them both at 11. If you're gonna tell me which one I think is gonna win, I think it's gonna be Tennessee. I think Tennessee might win. I right now, without seeing when they play the teams, I'm gonna predict Tennessee with Indy either tied or a game behind them. But I think both of them get into the playoffs. So next week, we started a week later. So the South was supposed to be on 4/27. We actually backed that a week to get away from the NFL draft. So the next sports talk, which will happen on 5/11, we're going to do the same structure, except we're going to break down the NFC North. So we'll be talking Vikings, we'll be talking Packers, we'll be talking Lions, and Bears, oh my, chat. But until then, I want to thank you for joining the C-Months 11 show. I appreciate it. Have a phenomenal rest of your night.